What's up, YouTube? Brian here, back again with another high-end rod review, and today we are looking at this bad boy, the Megabass P5 Full Metal Jacket, or the FMJ. This is Megabass's jig rod. It's the bottom contact rod. It's the rod meant for throwing slightly heavier bottom contact baits into grass, into cover, all that kind of stuff. And I bought this rod off of Omnia when they first came out in the spring. They finally hit the market. I have had the previous FMJ, but I'm not even going to talk about that rod because this rod shares no DNA other than the name with the old FMJ. The old FMJ was extremely stiff. It was shorter than it's a completely different rod. So there's no point in comparing the two. This is a fully rebooted, brand new model. Just shares the name. I just want to get that out of the way first. I picked up this rod way early in the season. I have been using the crap out of this thing all year. So I have months and months and months and months of wear and tear on this rod. As you can tell by the grips, man, I have used the snot out of this thing. It is a favorite rod of mine as we're getting closer to the end of the season. And I'll talk about all the things I like about it. But first off, I got this rod when it first came out from Omnia, and I believe they do actually have a few of these in stock. So check the link in the description for where these are located on Omnia's website. These rods are hard to find. They come in and out of stock. Shops get a few. They sell them. They don't see them for months. So if you're interested in this rod and they are in stock wherever you want to pick up the rod, buy it. Because if you don't and they're out of stock, you might not see it pop up again for months. Who knows? So anyways, this is the 7'3". Let's see. It is an F6 power. So this kind of teeters a little heavier than a medium heavy. So it's like kind of in that medium heavy to medium plus, whatever you want to call it, range. This thing is rated up to a full ounce. However, in using this rod extensively this summer, I will say the absolute sweet spot for this rod is 1/2 ounce to 5/8 ounce jigs with a trailer. It is amazing for 1/2 ounce to 5/8. Yes, you can throw a 3/4 on here with the trailer, but I would say it's a little top heavy for that. But man, a 1/2 ounce or 5/8 ounce jig on this thing is beautiful. Completely awesome. It can also throw heavier Texas rigs as well. You can definitely throw some football jigs on this and drag a little bit, but it is a little stiff. So it's a great grass fishing, a great cover rod, all that kind of stuff. So I'll get a little more into that later, but the point is it's rated up to 1 ounce. It's meant to be a straight jig rod. And the question is, can Megabass make a really awesome jig rod that competes with things like the NRX 873 or the NRX 894 or, the Steez bottom contact or, all the other high-end jig rods? Does this thing measure up, and is it maybe even better? Well, I will say unequivocally 100% yes. This is a phenomenal jig rod. Now, I'm a jig fisherman, so I'm a little picky about my jig setups. I love throwing a jig. It's something I have on my deck all the time. I'm kind of a jig addict. I throw it when I probably don't need to be throwing it, just to throw it because it's fun. And I will say that 100%, if you fish jigs from anywhere from shallow to deeper grass, this thing is the juice. It is so much fun to use, especially, like I said, if you're throwing that 1/2 ounce to 5/8 jigs. This can throw 3/8, but I actually would say go more towards like the X Bites or the Super Destroyer for 3/8 ounce jigs. This thing can do it 100%, no problem. However, I find that a little heavier of a jig on this thing really makes this rod shine. It needs a little load on there, and plus the amount of power that's in this rod and the sensitivity, getting a heavier jig, heavier like 1/2 ounce 5/8 down into the grass in deeper water and feeling the bites and feeling the grass and just getting a lot of information back in your hand. This rod is aces, like really sensitive. The action is perfect for fishing grass. Like you can I was fishing a lot of weed lines and a lot of coontail patches in like 8 to 17 feet of water, and when that jig hits that grass, you know exactly when it hits the grass. You know when you can actually even feel the jig falling through the grass down to the bottom if it's like something like coontail where there's like a canopy and a little room underneath. And then when a fish hits it and picks it up, one of the things that's astonishing about this rod is when you're fishing it, at least when I am, and I feel that jig just not touching anything. Like I can feel nothing on this rod. Like I know when a fish picks it up. Like there can be a little tension on this thing, and then you just feel the ever so slightly, oh, this jig's not in contact with a piece of grass or not in contact with the bottom. That someone picked it up. Then you just pull back and give it the beans. This rod is awesome for setting big, thunderous, dramatic hook sets because it's got a lot of bend in it, so you can be really dramatic and just really wail on a fish, and you're not going to blow the hook out, you know, that kind of stuff. So, okay, first things first. The fit and finish on the Megabass P5 rods are phenomenal. If you've never owned one of these, they are beautiful. In the newer versions of the P5 rods, they went with more of a rose gold accents on a lot of the metal pieces. So you got this beautiful rose gold lock nut, which is just glued onto a plastic piece, so don't get too excited. These definitely do have just some glue holding it onto a plastic chunk underneath, so there is opportunity for that glue to come loose and then that lock nut slides up. That's kind of a Megabass thing. It happens on a lot of destroyer rods, has for years. The cork on this thing is pretty dang good. I don't really, they said that this cork is actually better than the P5 cork that was on the rods previously, but honestly, I don't really see a difference. There is a lot of filler in there. Megabass isn't really like known for their amazing cork. I'd say St. Croix and Loomis actually have better cork, but it's decent. It's starting to show its filler just from 1 year of use, but I do have this thing sealed, so hopefully that filler isn't going to fall out. The balance on this thing. So let's talk about weight and balance. This rod weighs 4.3 ounces, and it's a 7'3" jig rod, so it's got a little more meat to it. So it's 4.3 ounces. Now, just as comparison, the X-Bites, the kind of the other bottom contact jig rod that steps, you know, in like on the lower power than this thing, the X-Bites is 3.8 ounces, and the NRX 873, which is a rod I would really compare this thing to, is 3.9. So it's about 0.3, 0.4 ounces heavier than its competition or its sister rod, the X-Bite. So very, very light. But man, the balance on this thing is fantastic. So I have a Steez A2, like the new version of the Steez A on this thing, and it balances beautifully. And the Steez is not a super lightweight reel. You can throw a super lightweight reel on this thing and it's going to be awesome. So the balance on this thing in the hand is phenomenal. They did give it a bigger butt section than the previous P5 rod, so maybe that has to do with a little better counterbalance. Not that all the old P5s, all the P5s in general are balanced really, really well, especially that Jungle 7 flipping stick, which I'm going to have a future review on coming up. That thing is balanced amazing for a flipping stick. This thing is also phenomenal balance, beautiful fit and finish, very subtle. These things are not as flashy as the previous destroyers. And even the Japanese destroyers. The fit and finish on this thing is exquisite, but it's not flashy. Like from a distance, this doesn't look like a $500 rod, but when you get it in hand and you feel it, and you get to see all the accent pieces up close and the amazing thread wrapping on all the guides and everything, then you start to notice, oh yeah, this thing is kind of a Ferrari. This thing is actually a $500 beautiful rod, but you got to get it in hand to kind of really see that. Obviously does not have a hook keeper, so I'm just running the Fuji hook keeper down the bottom, which is kind of a bummer. I wish these things had hook keepers. I don't care. Just put them somewhere. I don't, just why not? Put it up here, put it down there. I don't care. Just give me a hook keeper. I hate always having to put these Fuji keepers on here because they're kind of ugly. Like the Fuji keepers work really great, but they are not attractive whatsoever. Anyway, okay, fit and finish, amazing. Weight on point for a $500 rod. It has titanium SIC guides. Great guides for this price point. No Torzite. It would have been nice if it got Torzite, but Megabass has no Torzite rods whatsoever. To them, the Fuji SICs are the high end. So you're getting titanium Fuji SICs. You're getting amazing fit and finish. You're getting great balance. The action. We got to talk about this. So in hand, this rod feels very fast, like almost to extra fast. It feels very stiff. Like I'm really pushing down on this right now. It is a legit jig rod. However, when you're fishing in the grass or you're fishing cover and you set the hook, this thing bends and loads really nice under load. Like when you actually have a fish on the end of it and you're wrenching on them, this thing is not a broomstick. Like it's a broomstick in hand and it's a broomstick when you're like feeling it, sitting at a table like I am. But in use, in action, this thing has a lot of bend to it. It's soft when it needs to be, and that's like that Megabass 5D construction where it's got all these different secondary actions when you move down into the blank and you put it under load. That's really apparent with this rod. So I'm going to show you guys a catch video just to illustrate this point. So we're going to jump over to the laptop. This is me fishing a 1/2 ounce jig in some offshore milfoil / coontail on a Wisconsin largie lake. Set the hook. I'll try and get a pause. see the... So if you see, man, this rod loads up. Like, it feels like a broomstick in hand, but when you got it on the water and you're hooked into a fish and you're pulling out of grass, this thing, the action dives deep on this blank. You can see it.
Nice bass coming out of the grass with the jig.
Yeah, so I want to at least show you guys a good catch video there. So it's everything you want in a jig rod if you're a 1/2 ounce to 5/8 ounce jig fisherman and you're often fishing offshore vegetation. You can flip with this thing, but you're not going to flip heavy cover. This is not the rod to throw into reeds, into lily pads, any really thick, dense cover. Do not use this rod for. This is more for sparse grass, docks, wood, that kind of stuff, brush piles. You know, I love it for offshore milfoil and coontail. That was my favorite. I would just go run around with my active target, find a coontail patch, grab this thing, pitch a jig into there, and then see if anyone's home. If someone's home, you're setting a hook, wrenching them out of there, that kind of stuff. It's just a super fun rod. My favorite jigs to throw on this thing, I'm going to leave a couple links if you're interested in some of the jigs that I personally like to throw on this. This is the Outcast Tackle Stealth Fighter 1/2 ounce tungsten jig. I also really love the Beast Coast Little Magnum jig for fishing grass. Those are basically the two grass jigs I use the most all season, so I kind of flip between those two. They're both really good. So I'm going to leave a couple of the jigs that I like, plus some of the plastic trailers that I'm really a big fan of, into the links in the description. The Steez A2, man, I got to talk about this reel real quick. It is basically unrecognizable to me to the old Steez. So I have a bunch of the old Steez A's. I picked up the new Steez A2. Other than the really cool new paint job this thing got, and it got some upgrades, but man, in practice, it doesn't feel any different, other than the handles are different, but the casting, the usability, the smoothness, all of it feels pretty much the exact same as the Steez A. I don't think it's like a giant upgrade. However, it costs a lot of money. I think the new Steez A2 is over $600, maybe $650 when you buy it from a U.S. company. I know people are buying them cheaper over in Japan and bringing them over, but man, it's a great reel. It palms big. So if you're used to zillions and you buy a Steez, this is a much bigger reel. So if you're not used to that, you're going to be like, whoa, $650 halo reel that palms kind of big. That's true with these Steez. But yeah, I do love the Steez A2. I'm not disappointed with it. It's really nice. It's really fun. But if you have a bunch of Steez A's, don't feel like you need to run out and upgrade to the new Steez A2, because to me, it's not $100+ better than the old Steez A2. In fact, if you just put both these in my hand and I didn't know that there was a difference in the paddles, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, to be perfectly honest with you. Okay, so great rod, 100% buy if you're a jig fisherman. This is jig fishing nirvana with like a really high-end reel, whether you pick a Steez or something else, like a Bantam would be great on this reel as well. But man, slap a high-end reel on here. I'm running 15-pound Tatsu line, which is extremely nice to cast and to reel in. Really bougie. It feels almost like braid. It's so supple and smooth. But stick a really nice line on here, a really nice reel. Grab some really nice higher-end jigs. Oh, the OSP jigs are really good on this rod as well. So if you want to go JDM, I definitely highly suggest some of the OSP jigs. I had a fun time throwing OSP jigs on here as well. So anyway, grab some good jigs, grab some great line, grab this FMJ, and just go find some darn offshore grass and just have a fun time flipping grass and flipping big bass out of vegetation with this rod, because it is super fun. So if you're a hardcore jig fisherman and you're on the fence, do I need to spend $500 on a Megabass jig rod? Is it the real deal? 100% absolutely it is. It's phenomenal. I have been shelving my 890. I have an 894 G Loomis NRX jig rod. That was my jig rod last year. That thing is collecting dust. I will probably end up selling that rod because I like this way better. It's shorter. It's more user friendly. It's balanced way better. It actually feels way better in the hand, and it throws a half-ounce jig like heaven. It is so good. So anyway, I'm gushing about this rod. It's fantastic. Check links in the description if you're curious on checking these things out. Definitely grab them from Omnia if you want to. Hopefully they got them in stock when you're watching this video. They do right now. They're probably not gonna in the near future. So anyways, that being said, if you've made it this far in the video, please give me a like and a subscribe, and definitely check me out down on the Instagram. I post a lot of my on the water content there. And until the next Megabass rod review, we have the Jungle 7 coming up next. We'll see you next time. Thank you.